Hello my dear friends, I'm Corey. In this video I will talk about my first experience with 3D printing, and I also give you some advices and suggestions. I was planning to get into 3D printing for more than 2 years now, and finally on December 2022 I decided that that was the time for me to get into this hobby. Also because I had some money to spend and also the deals were pretty good, and so I bought my first 3D printer. Specifically a anycubic Photon Mono X 6K, which is an upgrade for the previous Mono X model, which has a 4K resolution LCD screen, which is not the printer that I was planning to buy initially. I wanted to buy a 8K 3D printer, but then a couple of friends of mine slapped my face telling me that it was more than an overkill for a beginner to buy a 8K printer, and a 4K printer was more than enough. So I decided to go for the middle ground and buy a 6K 3D printer. For those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, basically a resin 3D printer works like this. You have an LCD screen that projects UV lights that cure liquid resin that has been poured into a vat and then placed on top of the LCD screen. That way, layer by layer, it builds your miniatures, your figures, your prints, basically. And LCD screens, like TV screens, have different kinds of resolution. So you have printer with a 2K resolution, 4K, 6K, like the one that I have, and 8K, and who knows, maybe in the future we will have even more. Who knows? I also bought a wash and cure machine with my printer, more on that later, and 3 different types of resins. A clear standard transparent resin, a gray plant-based eco resin, and a ABS-like resin, also gray, because I wanted to try different kind of resins. I wanted to see how they perform, so I bought 3 different resins, and I bought all of this together in a deal that Anycubic was doing during Christmas. I bought all of these things from Anycubic because a friend of mine suggested me to do that. Anycubic haven't sponsored this video, absolutely not. So how was my first experience with 3D printing? Well, I have to say, honest to gods, this was the most easy, quick, straightforward, plug-and-play experience that I have ever had with such a machine in general. Literally, I have just unboxed the printer, put it onto my table, leveled the plate, and then I just printed. Nothing more, nothing less. And my first print was the Anycubic test cube, which is a free STL file provided by Anycubic inside a USB pen drive that came with the printer. And I failed my first print. But not because I've done something wrong, but because I have modded my printer with a different kind of plate. Or more specifically, I have added a plate onto the plate of the printer. Let me explain. A Photon Mono X on its plate have a checker pattern that has been etched onto it to improve the grip of the plate onto the prints. And I've seen a lot of people struggling with that because the grip is maybe too good, to the point that a lot of hobbyists had to brute force their way in order to detach the prints from the plate, and sometimes they even broke the prints because it is too strong. And so, since I was worried, I decided to buy a flex plate, specifically a Wham Bam System flex plate. Basically, it is a magnet that you glue onto your plate, and then you have to wait for 72 hours in order for the glue to bond with the steel plate, and then onto it you just attach a flex steel plate that it bends. So it will you just have to bend the plate in order to pop the prints off of it. And so I done that. I have glued the magnet, I waited 3 days, and then I have printed, and the prints didn't stick to the magnetic plate. Maybe because it was too smooth, but I solved it in 5 minutes. I just took a piece of sandpaper, I sanded the flex plate, and after that I have never failed a print once. Of course, I haven't printed like an entire army of what I have maybe printed a dozens of models, but until now I haven't failed a print yet. Everything went just fine. And my experience since went so well, I wanted to talk about it and also give you some advices and suggestions that maybe help you if you want to get into 3D printing, or maybe you can also share some of your advices down in the comments, because I also need those. I'm still a beginner, of course, and more beginners like me would like to have some suggestions down there. But anyway, what I suggest you to do first thing first, you absolutely need, in my opinion, a place dedicated only for 3D printing. A dedicated space to your hobby improve drastically the way that you enjoy and you do your hobby. And I will give this advice for like any hobby, not only 3D printing. My table, in which I paint my miniature, is an example. If you have a place with everything set up, ready to be used, it makes your life easier, it makes your hobby more enjoyable, because you don't have to just set up everything when you want to start. You just start. Because if you have to set up everything that you need in order to do your hobby, you will just get bored and frustrated, because maybe you just have to do something else and then you have to remove everything and set up something else. Just have a space dedicated for that. It doesn't have to be like a huge table or an entire room, which I also maybe that it's a good thing, because resin fumes and alcohol fumes are not a good thing to inhale. But of course, if you don't have an entire room to dedicate for 3D printing, even just a small table with everything there would be perfect. Alright, I just decided that I'm going to show you what I mean as a dedicated space for your hobby, in this case 3D printing. This is my workstation, which is a table that I have built myself. On top of it I have put my 3D printer, which is printing right now. This is an enclosure. I will talk about this in a moment in this video. I am printing something. This is my wash and cure machine. I also have a kettle for boiling water in case I need hot water for removing supports or general cleaning purposes. A tool rack with all of the things that I need: safety goggles, safety gloves, safety mask, everything that will save your life basically, because resin on your skin, it's really toxic. In your eyes is even worse. The smells is horrible, even though I actually think it's pretty good smell, not bad. But anyway, you don't want to inhale resin fumes, so use a mask. All of this stuff here. And also I have some shelves in which I have my resins, supports that I have saved that I maybe use in the future, the alcohol, some tanks for hot water or whatever. Anyway, this is my workplace, my hobby 3D printing place. And yeah, this is just that I want to show you what I mean by that. My other suggestion, if you have the money to spend, buy a wash and cure machine. Oh my god, this machine is so great, amazing. I loved it. Not because it's from Anycubic. I also know that Elegoo sells their wash and cure, or maybe there are other companies, but anyway, buy a wash and cure machine. The way that I could define a wash and cure machine might be a dishwasher for your prints. Because your prints, after you remove them from the printer, need to be cleansed. There is uncured resin onto them, and you have to wash them with alcohol. So you just fill the tank of the wash and cure machine with alcohol, then you place it into the machine, set the time, and just start. And basically the machine, like a dishwasher or a blender, it just mix the alcohol and wash away the uncured resin, which is amazing. And the machine is called wash and cure because it also cures the resin. Because your resin may not be fully cured, you want to cure it for at least 4 to 5 minutes. It depends on the size of the prints. But basically you just switch the machine from wash to cure. You just pull away the tank full of alcohol, place your model onto a rotating plate, then press start after setting the times, and a series of UV lights cure your prints. Of course, you don't have to buy a wash and cure machine. You can wash your prints by filling a bowl with alcohol and scrub away the uncured resin with an old toothbrush or something like that. And for the UV light, well, you just have to put your miniatures or prints outside under the sun, because the sunlight have UV lights onto it, and it cures your prints, it cures resin. It is more slow, but it is free. If you can, I really suggest you buy a wash and cure machine, to the point that maybe you can save some money by buying maybe a cheaper printer, so that you can also buy a wash and cure machine, because it is just great. It just makes the cleaning process much smoother, and you just do things more quickly without having to do a mess around your working station. Another little suggestion, I told you that you have to use alcohol in order to clean your prints and miniatures, etc. Unless you're using water washable resin. I use standard resin, and you need alcohol for that. And most of the time people will tell you that you will have to use isopropyl alcohol, which is a 99.9% pure alcohol. And it is fucking expensive. This was a huge problem for me. First of all, isopropyl is not cheap, it's really expensive, and it's also very hard to find. I couldn't manage to find a bottle of isopropyl alcohol in a DIY store in my area. So I asked one of my friends if I could use denatured alcohol instead, which is a alcohol solution pure at 90%. It's not pure as isopropyl, but still, it's 90% alcohol. And my friends told me that yes, I could absolutely use that, but that I would have to clean my prints for a longer period of time. And of course I told, screw that, I have a wash and cure machine, I just have to set the time for a long washing period. I already told you that wash and cure machines are great. This is also another reason. It works perfectly fine, I haven't had any problem with it, and also it's dirty cheap and so much easier to find at isopropyl. The only downside that I have found is that it tends to leave a pink kinda color onto your prints, and I was worried that that would interfere with the paint job, because I paint my prints, and I didn't have any problem. It doesn't interfere with the paint job, thankfully, because I was extremely worried about something like this. So use denatured alcohol. You're not going to have any problem with that. Another thing that I suggest you do, even if you don't have a 3D printer, even if you are just thinking to get into 3D printing, start to learn how to use a slicer. A slicer is a program for your computer that will allow you to print your 3D models. Basically, you put your 3D models, your STL files into the program, and it works with them, make them readable for your 3D printer. You have to learn how to use that, because you will have to support your miniatures, and also you have to be careful for islands. Now, I will try to explain you really briefly in a comprehensive way what islands are. Basically, when you're printing something that might be a part of the model that it's detached from the main body of the model that you're printing. For example, let's just say that you want to print a bust of me, and I have maybe my arm like this with my elbow pointing down, all right? When you're printing layer by layer, something like this, when you arrive at this point and you will have to print my elbow, if there is not a support, you will just cure this part, then the old miniature, the old bust rise up with the plate, but the elbow remains down, cured in the vat, and that's a huge problem. Because if you don't remove that and you just print something else later, well, the plate will go down, crush that piece of cured resin on the bottom of the vat and destroy the LCD screen. And you don't want that, because LCD screens are incredibly expensive. Fortunately, there is another software for that, which is called the UV tool, that detects islands. Learn to use that, and learn to use a slicer software. Maybe like I use Lychee, but there is also Chitubox, Photon also have a slicer. There are plenty of slicers out there. Just find the one that you like and learn how to use it. It is extremely important. But Corey, you might say, STL files, most often than not, are sold pre-supported. Why should I learn how to do that? Well, because people pre-supporting those STL files are still humans. Humans make mistakes, and they may have lived some part of the model that ends up being islands that will make your prints fail. I already seen something like this multiple times with my friends. So just spend some time learning how to use these softwares. It is incredibly important. But of course, it's not impossible for you to fail prints. You will fail a lot of prints. I will fail a lot of prints. And what you do then? You will have to clean everything. When you fail a print, cure resin on the bottom of the vat is a problem, as I said before, and you have to remove that and clean everything up. But don't worry, you don't have to just detach everything and pour uncured resin onto the resin bottle and do a mess. You just need a cleaning file. Now, a cleaning file is not something that you will require to have in your USB pen drive, because a lot of 3D printers have this function already installed onto them. But I don't think that the Mono X have it. At least I haven't found it. So I have a cleaning file of it, which does a very simple thing. Basically, it cures a layer of resin larger as the LCD screen. After it does that, I just have to peel away the layer of cured resin, and with it all the cured resin of my previous failed print. Which is amazing because it saves you a lot of time. Yes, you will waste a little bit of resin, but we're talking about pennies. If you take into consideration that if you don't do that, or you do that in a wrong way, you will have to replace, in the worst case scenario, an LCD screen. And believe me, you prefer to waste a little bit of resin instead of changing an entire LCD screen of your printer. My last advice is for those of you like me who have to print in a place that it's not really warm. Unfortunately, resin need to be in a warm place. Ideally, you want to have 20 degrees Celsius, which are roughly 70 Fahrenheit, I believe, for my American friends. And my garage is a pretty cold place. We are talking 12 degrees Celsius or 55 Fahrenheit, which is not good for your resin. How can you solve that? You can buy an enclosure. You can buy it from Amazon. I bought mine from Wham Bam System because since I was buying the flex plate, I also decided to buy the enclosure. And with that, you can almost solve your problem. Basically, it is an enclosure that will keep the warmth and the heat generated by the machine inside, and it will raise the temperature. Unfortunately, it didn't raise the temperature to an ideal spot for me, but we are talking around 65 Fahrenheit or 15-16 degrees Celsius, which it's not ideal, but I didn't have any problem with that. Just to be sure, I also use a fan heater so that I can just heat the inside of the enclosure with my printer in it and raise the temperature up even over 65-70 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. But again, even without the perfect temperature, I didn't have any problem. Also, you may want to warm your resin, maybe just heat some water, not to the boiling point, but heat it up a little bit and then put the resin bottle onto it, into the water, and let it warm a little bit. Just be sure that you're not letting your printer print into like freezing temperature or something like that. It is really important. Alright, my friends, these were all my advices and suggestions for a beginner from a beginner. Let me know down in the comments what you think about it. And also, if you have something to say, more suggestion and advice, leave them down in the comments because I would love to read them. I need them, like maybe a lot of the people that would watch this video, I think. Let me know down in the comments, and also leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos. Down in the description there are a couple of links, a way to support me, and also my Instagram if you want to check them out. And this is the end of the video. I'm Corey, and I really hope to see you the next time. Ciao ciao, my friends. Whoa, man, it would be so easy if we all would use the metric system. Oh my god, no. No, the Imperial is much better. No.